Thank you, Chair. Putting aside the budget for the police service itself, will you have you'll have significant other resources to be used to fund initiatives and services designed to prevent crime and improve community safety. But how will you decide to cut that cake, that budget cake?
Thank you. Thanks for the question. In the plan, it's all down to me really. Sort of finger in the air, see how it looks. I've thought quite hard about it, and I've talked to lots of people. So in the plan, there is an indicative. I hope it's survived. There's an indicative chart which shows how I would spend that money. It shows firstly where all the money is spent this year, and there's about the existing money is about 1.74 million is spent currently, and its support is spread across things like drugs programs, young people's programs, support to victims, youth offending teams, and other issues. And I've said to everybody, because after 11 weeks, how can I come up with something that is smart and clever and likely to be better? I can't. So I've said, if we've done it this year, let's do it next year, but with the extra proviso that I want you really to be telling me how you're spending it. So I managed to get about an extra £500,000, and I have, to give you a sort of example, I've said about £100,000 of that extra money for community safety partnerships. It's an extra £10,000 for Epping, if you like. That's broadly what that would look like. An extra £80,000 on victim support. But if you think that there are 44,000 victims of domestic abuse a year, Home Office figure, that's roughly £2 a hit to support them. Doesn't feel over generous to me. An extra £50,000 for youth work and youth offending. An extra £30,000 for crime prevention. I'm thinking, Neighbourhood Watch, which I really strongly support, gets by on, I think, £3,000 a year. It might be 7,000. I think it's 3,000. Well, to give them some money for some more photocopying, or to get more leaflets out, or to support their work, does it make a difference? I said I'm a scientist. I believe in research. I want to create some money to support the analytic and the research work. So I've allocated £40,000 for that in this indicative budget. 50,000 for working with criminal justice, which is really trying to get some innovative schemes around probation and the link between probation and other bits of the criminal justice system. And the chief had previously allocated nearly £300,000 to try and make the whole community budgeting work. This is the whole concept of let's do it completely differently. And that's likely to be in the area of health, mental health, trying to break into that very difficult cycle of troubled families. It feels quite generous. On the other hand, it may be that within 3 months I decide what you really need are more PCSOs. The fact is I've got control over this money, and I will spend it as wisely as I can, and then let you know how I'm spending it, and you can hold me to account.
Just one more question from you, Leon.
You mentioned efficiencies, which is great, but also performance. Certainly a number of concerns, issues that residents where I live have voiced is area of antisocial behaviour. They make a report to the police, and it's a common issue in our area, but because of such under-resourcing of police officers, it can take up to an hour, hour and a half for those officers to get there, and then by then the offenders have disappeared. That's quite a frequent problem, but talking to the officers that attend, they're at full stretch. They are covering such vast areas on their patch that they can't get to a lot of these areas as quick as they would like to. But also on performance, some officers have mentioned to me their own concerns about the standard of training that Essex police officers receive before they then go out on the beat compared with other forces. So is there a way of making sure that the standard of training they receive is comparable with other forces?
Thanks for that, Councillor Girling. I was going to ask police colleagues to come in. I would just preface it by saying that the performance meetings that I have with the chief are going to get after all of that sort of detail. I've heard all of these accounts. I've heard them too often over the last 9 months, which is why my second priority, my second pledge was about prompt and professional policing. It's not easy. There's been a lot of change over the last year. Delivering £42 million savings out of the force has been very tough. And I'll ask, I'm not sure whether Mr. Crocker or Mr. Ross want to come in, but let's hear it from your local commanders. There are challenges. I am going to get stuck into that review of performance. I do have concerns. I know the police, every police officer I've spoken to wants to do better. Most of them think they can do better as things settle down. But let's pass it over to...
What area is it, sorry, Councillor, that you represent on?
Loughton Broadway, so Debden, part of Loughton.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you. I mean, without boring anybody with the details, clearly we get a number of calls a day. We've already spoken just in respect of domestic violence. That as a county, we look at 85. I think as a county we record somewhere between 12 and 1,300 incidents a day. And they each get graded, as you would expect. And some we send somebody on blue lights as quickly as we can possibly get them there. Some we say we want to get there within the first hour. Others we say we need to get there at some point today. Or some we say we can deal with this over the phone. Antisocial behaviour covers a wide range of incidents, and clearly some of those fall into some of those different categories. I'll just mention that as a sort of bit of background, that obviously some of those, unfortunately, that there'll be a number of competing demands at any one time, and we've got the resources we've got available at that time in that area, and we have to prioritise that. The bit where I think we can really make a difference to antisocial behaviour, though, is around some of the ongoing issues, is not simply responding when we get something happens, we get a phone call, we go along and try and get there, because even if we dispatch somebody straight away and it takes us 15 minutes to drive from where we happen to be patrolling to where the incident's reported, that can be too late. And we need to preempt some of that. We need to understand better through these sort of processes, through the council, particularly if you're from your people in your ward, if you're hearing about that, and through Caroline's team. If we can understand some of the ongoing problems, then we can do some things ahead of time which helps. And we've got our PCSOs, we've got our neighbourhood constables, who we can schedule in their work a bit more easily than the officers working the 24/7 shifts who predominantly respond to incidents. Would I love the police officers? Of course, always. But those are the sort of demands we're juggling. But the more information we have, the more easily we can prioritise that, which I hope answers most of that question.
Councillor, a really good point around training. And I think I'll make 3 points on this. The first one being, with less staff, 400 less officers, 100 less PCSOs, 500-600 less staff, getting 100% out of everybody is all the more important. So training is a real key strategic issue for the force. In terms of operational training for police officers and PCSOs, a fairly standard national package of training that all officers and all PCSOs get. What's important, though, is the follow-up and the ongoing training and development of those officers and staff as the months and years pass. Our training budgets have been and are affected by some of the challenges Mr. Alston set out, and I think you'd understand that. We have a collaborative training department with Kent now, and we've looked to make that really lean and efficient. The drive now is to provide local training after the national sort of induction packages to officers and staff as they progress through their career. So I take on board with some concern the feedback you've had about officers don't feel they're getting the training. All I can assure you is it's a priority for me as the local commander, and it's something we'll take away and I'll take away and have a look at. But it's very much up there on the agenda, and thank you for raising the point.
I can also go back, and when I see the chief, as I do every week, Thursday morning I'll be seeing him, he asks how these things are going, and I might run through the sorts of things that come up, and I don't make a song and dance about it, because we all know that the anecdotal stories, the reported comments, there's always a bit of colour and a bit of to get them into shape, but it's really good that somebody is able to take those on board and keep them alive and add them to that discussion about performance. It's just a little bit richer picture.